Hey everybody, welcome to the Let's Play podcast. Jonathan here, and I'm joined by Charlotte. And, we were deciding what would be a good idea to do for a holiday-themed episode, and we decided to go with a holiday gift guide for all the gamers/readers in your life. It was either that or a Call of Duty deathmatch.
You didn't want to be absolutely obliterated in the deathmatch?
Oh, them fighting words. How are you doing, Charlotte?
I'm doing great. I have a new haircut.
Yes, I did notice that. So before we get into the books, I was thinking about, do you have any memories of your favorite video game gift that you got for the holidays?
So I actually have a very specific memory of a gift that my brother got me one year for Christmas. I really wanted the original Final Fantasy VII, and this was at a time where, it was kind of, a collector's item, so it was hard to find. And my brother actually bought 3 separate versions of it that all had, one of the discs with it so that he could put it together and give me, the full game.
Oh, my God. That's amazing. Was it very hard for him to track all those down?
I think it was not too hard. It was just he found a store, that was selling it in pieces and was able to piece it together like that. The funniest thing was that my grandma then asked him, oh, can you help me think of a gift to give Charlotte for Christmas? So basically, he gifted me that, Christmas morning, and then, we put it back in a bag, handed it to my grandma, and then she re-gifted it to me that night.
Awesome.
Do you have any favorite gaming gifts?
My family, they like to get a little tricky with things. So one of the things that they used to do is they would wrap up a box of something that they knew I probably wouldn't be excited about. So they would wrap up a desk lamp or a shoebox or something like that. But then they would put a video game inside of the shoebox to kind of throw me off. So I definitely remember one year there was this, it was this lamp, and I was probably I don't know, maybe 13 or 14. So I was really not feeling a desk lamp. So I opened it up and I was like, oh yeah, thanks. Yeah, this is great. And I think I probably pushed it to the side, and someone had to tell me, Jonathan, you should open up that lamp and see if see how the wiring is, what's going on in there. And then I opened it up and it was a copy of Tomb Raider 2 for PlayStation, and I was pretty excited. So that was really funny. And it kind of scarred me for life, because now whenever I go to Foot Locker or something and I open up a shoe, I got to be honest, I'm a little disappointed that there's not a video game in there.
Yeah, I had my brother do that to me too with Dune. He gifted me a copy of Dune, but he put $20 in every 100 pages. He's
Nice.
trying to make sure that I read Dune.
Oh my God, that's good incentive. Oh, maybe I should do that to my nephew.
Well, the thing is, you can just leaf through the pages.
Yeah.
So our first book is something we've been really excited to have here and just be able to hold and look at it because it's super shiny and super pretty. And here we have The Legend of Zelda Encyclopedia, the special edition.
Yeah, right off the bat, I just love how it's modeled after the original NES cartridge, because that was so cool. I remember getting Zelda when I was a kid, and the fact that it was gold and all the other ones were that kind of basic gray, and it just kind of popped so much more. You knew you were getting something special.
This is just a really great one if you are someone who likes to sit down and kind of just read all the little minutia of every game. It's got a ton of fun facts and whatnot about the games. Any of these encyclopedia type things are great gifts for kids who love gaming, and you're, kind of trying to encourage to take that love of gaming and incorporate it into also a love of reading. But I feel like this is especially a good one for the slightly older kid range, because it is a very pretty book. You probably don't want to be giving it to a younger kid that's going to mess it up.
Yeah, I was going to say it's a great way to trick your kids into reading if they do like video games.
Or shiny things. It's very,
Yes.
very shiny. Look at the edges. Also shiny.
Do you have a favorite Zelda, Charlotte?
So I feel like the Zelda that I have played the most is probably Wind Waker. And I feel like that's also the Zelda you've played the most, if I remember correctly.
Maybe. I don't think I finished that one, but that was one of the ones I've played a lot, because I really liked the art style of that. It had that kind of cel-shaded cartoon 3D look to it, which I thought was really appealing. And I just like the whole idea of using the wind on your boat to sail around the world. I think my personal favorite, though, is, I think it's called A Link to the Past, which I believe was the first one on Super Nintendo. That one was really cool, because that one had this concept of parallel worlds. And I thought that was like very ahead of its time for that era, where you had like an overworld, but you can like warp to this other dimension, which was sort of laid out in the same way, but things were different. So it helped you find secrets and traverse different areas. I really like that.
Well, you know where I bet you could learn even more about that game?
Yes. I have to check that out.
All right, should we move on to our next title?
Let's do that. Where's Cuphead? Oh my God.
So speaking of games with art styles that we really love, our next book is The Art of Cuphead. I'm sure every gamer is well aware of Cuphead and what a delightful old-timey animation style it has, but this has been a book on my own list for a very long time that I'm really happy that I finally took the plunge and ordered, just because there are so many cool like animation cells and just like descriptions of how the animation process for the game worked in this book. So it truly is like a delight to own. And whether you want to sit down and read it cover to cover, or if you just want to flip through and kind of like take it at a slow pace and just enjoy the art, like no matter what, you're going to have a great time with this book.
Yeah, I really love how even the book really captures that whole 1930s vintage animation aesthetic. And yeah, it was such a great idea to blend that style into a very, very punishing run and gun shooter. And the good thing is that reading the book is much easier than playing the game, actually.
Yeah, it's one of those, like, it's such a great idea for a game, but it's also one of those things where it's easy to have that idea. It's very hard to then pull it off, especially with such a small team that the Cuphead team was. And it's just so amazing that they made a great game with great art, great animation. That era of animation was one where, you know, there were so many things being developed and learned. It was a time when basically all of the rules of animation that we now have were being created. And I mean, just like the fact that they had to kind of rebuild a like 1930s multi-plane camera system for like capturing that exact like animation aesthetic was really cool.
Yeah, and one of the things I loved about animation during that era was that they did use real cameras. And, you know, when they did movement and like, you know, doing like, I guess like dolly shots where you get that sort of the depth of field kind of changing, or that parallax effect, they call it. It's just so cool because they would like mount the cameras on the ceiling and then literally like make stacks of all the different cells, and then you would actually like move the camera in real time. So it just has that like beautiful organic feel that people try to replicate today using computer graphics.
Yeah, that is the multi-plane camera system, which
Sorry.
It is like, it's such an obvious thing to us nowadays. We're like, yeah, we just make layers and we move them.
Yeah.
But just the fact that like the people developing this back in the day were like, they had no idea, and it took so much time and effort to even experiment with these things.
They must have been so excited when they finally figured it out, because it's such a cool effect, especially because you would have never seen anything like that before. Do you have a favorite Cuphead boss?
Do I have a favorite boss, or do I have just many, many memories of suffering? When I first played Cuphead, I only had a Mac laptop, and I was trying to play it when it was a new game, and that was back before there was a Mac version, or even, you know, like other consoles, like consoles that I own.
Yeah.
Like that was not an option, so I was basically having to emulate it on my Mac, and it only worked like half the time. Like sometimes I'd load it up and the controller just wouldn't work.
Yikes.
So maybe like the true boss of Cuphead for me was just making it work. And like I even had to go back and I turned off people's ability to see how long I've been playing a game in Steam because of Cuphead, because my friends started making fun of me for taking so long on it.
Oh my goodness.
Did you have a favorite boss?
You know, it's hard for me to single out one. Some of the ones that I do remember really liking was, I really like the levels where you're flying the plane. There are sort of those auto-scroller type levels. And one, I think it was sort of like this Medusa sea monster that was sort of modeled after Betty Boop, I think. That one I really liked. And there was also kind of like a Forbidden Planet type robot / mad scientist one where you're like flying over a city. That one was really cool. They're all really awesome, but those are two of the ones that really stuck out.
Fun fact, Forbidden Planet is one of my favorite movies.
Oh, nice. Look at that. The next book we have on our list is The Art of Ni no Kuni 2. And This is obviously the sequel to Ni no Kuni 1.
Oh, is it?
And I'm a big Studio Ghibli fan. There's just something about that art style I really like. And more than that, I really like the way they storytell. I think it's a very unique style, especially when you're talking about the children's genre. I feel like it's kind of like a breath of fresh air compared to American children's films because, I don't know, I think the Ghibli style, it's a little bit more mature. I think I don't know if I want to say the word respect, but they kind of appreciate the intelligence or the emotional intelligence of a child, I think, a little bit more, and they're not as afraid to explore more, I would say, more mature themes or just have a little bit more complex storytelling. And it doesn't always fall into that traditional, like, good versus evil. There's a lot of gray area in their stories, which I really like, and I think that definitely is represented in the Ni no Kuni games, which I really like. And of course, the art style is amazing as well.
Just in general, like animation industry, I'll say, I think there are, plenty of things that the West that the West does that is very amazing in the animation world. But obviously anything in the mainstream Hollywood block is always going to be like, what is the quickest, cheapest way to make a bunch of money? So I guess like something like Studio Ghibli is nice because they both have that like Hollywood international power at this point, but they kind of are still telling the stories that they want to tell.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And the character designer for Ni no Kuni is Yoshiyuki Momose, and he was actually working in the animation department for a few of my favorite Ghibli films. One of them is Spirited Away. He also worked on The Grave of the Fireflies, also Whisper of the Heart, which I really love, and Porco Rosso, another great one.
It is such a great book to look at because I will say, like, obviously we're both talking about how one of the best selling points of Ni no Kuni as a series to us is the art style. I feel like especially for Ni no Kuni 2, I love like the character designs, the world, and just kind of like all the aesthetic stuff going on. I feel like story-wise, it kind of disappointed me compared to the first game. It kind of fell a bit flat for me, but it's kind of nice to like be able to pick up an art book about it and be like, oh, let's just focus in on the art and like the visual aspect and kind of like get to appreciate that and not really be like, and this is how the game disappointed me.
There's a prologue in there or an epilogue about Charlotte's disappointment in the game. No. I think the way they lean into characters and not just character design, but just the variety and the volume of characters in their stories, it really lends itself really well to this kind of book, but also the game in general, because there's a little bit of a collect-a-thon kind of aspect to it where you're recruiting a lot of characters, you're building a kingdom, so you have all these different personalities, and I think they go into detail of all the different character designs in this, and you can kind of see all the different angles they were conceived at and kind of like how they were sort of mapped out to work in the game, which I really thought was cool.
And I will also say that if you're looking for a gift for someone who's a fan of games, and especially like this sort of style of game, this is a great gift to pick up for them. One, because I feel like it's a little... Someone who collects like a lot of art books might not necessarily have this one because it's a little not quite as mainstream. But also, if you're someone who does pick up art books consistently, you probably know that they're generally pretty expensive, whereas this one is actually very affordable. So it is a great like gift to give to really anyone you think might appreciate it. Yeah,
that is a great point. And it's also not that big too, so it's a little bit more safe to have around kids. And yeah, I think that probably lends itself to the cheaper price tag. But still a really good book, amazing colors. And one thing about the Ni no Kuni games that I absolutely love, which a lot of people have praised, is the world map and how colorful and paint-like it looks in the actual game, and that's very
Jonathan,
much
keep
represented.
telling us about maps.
Yeah, I'm a mapophile. What can I say? Proud. Loud and proud. All right, our next one is a little heavy, but it's a doozy. The Sky, The Art of Final Fantasy. So I'm very, very excited about this book because Yoshitaka Amano is one of my favorite artists, and I was introduced to him through the Final Fantasy games, but as I grew older, I really have never come across an artist that reminds me of his style. It's such a unique and evocative look to all his works. Final Fantasy has been a series that has gone through a lot of evolutions and changes, and people have come and gone throughout the series, but one of the constants is his art. His art has always been a big part of all the mainline games. And, you know, even the logos, I still think he designs all the logos for all the mainline games. And yeah, I just have such fond memories because this is probably before your time, Charlotte. But, you know, when you used to get Super Nintendo games or Nintendo games, you know, the instruction book was a big deal. And a lot of times I can remember either riding the subway, taking, you know, like bringing the game back to my house or something, or, you know, for some reason, maybe I couldn't play a game at home. So I would just like break out the instruction manual to read it. And it had like such a strong like prestige to it. I don't know. It felt like you were almost looking at something like elevated better than what it was. I don't know.
Yeah, so this has so much in this box, but like the main heart of it is it's 3 hardcover books covering the Art of Final Fantasy up through Final Fantasy X. Final Fantasy X was my first Final Fantasy game I ever played, and I very much remember looking up the concept art as I was playing it, and just seeing his work was kind of my first introduction into the world of concept art that isn't, you know, this super like polished final concept. And I guess it just kind of opens up kind of like your artistic appreciation of what goes into a game, but also just like the way different art styles can still support this like amazingly like polished final product.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I think one of the cool things about his work is there's always just this feeling of like movement and organicness to his work. Even though I really like concept art, I feel like his sticks out so much because it almost looks like something you would see in a museum as opposed to something that's a little bit more instructional, or at least like theoretical, like conceptual, that's actually going to help finish a product. And I think what's so cool about his involvement in these games is that it really sort of embodies the whole, I think, idea behind Final Fantasy, at least what it was when it was conceived. In that, you know, when the series first came out, it was obviously coming out on the Nintendo, and, you know, you had very primitive pixel graphics. And their whole idea is they wanted the feeling of the game to be like way more grand and involved than, you know, what you were actually seeing on the screen, and really capture your imagination. I really think coupling the game and the story with his art was like the perfect marriage, because when you play a game and then you look at the character designs and the character portraits in the game, you can see the portraits of his art. And you're like, I just remember looking at certain characters like in the menu, and they would have these like dramatic poses, and you would see all these like colors and crazy details. You're like, wow, that looks much different than Mario and Zelda or something like that. You know, it's like, it's very, very, it's almost more akin to like a Monet painting than it is something you would find in a video game book.
Yeah, and I feel like his art also kind of captures, I guess, the spirit of Final Fantasy that I kind of wish we would see more of the recent games go back to. Like, I guess it was kind of maybe 13 that was the turning point where I guess they kind of, like, I would say a lot of the games were, before that, were always like, they were clearly very inspired always by Western fantasy tropes, but I feel like they also brought so much of that kind of like Japanese take on that, and kind of like more creativity in crafting the worlds that just like was really engaging. Whereas I feel like 15, 16 is very much, it's like, oh, this is what fantasy in the West has become, so let's like chase after that. And I don't know, I really want to go back to that kind of like super colorful, fun fantasy world.
Yeah, I think the earlier games had a little bit more of that quirkiness that I really enjoyed. And this is a great book for anyone who's a big fan of Final Fantasy in general, or just anyone who enjoys video game art. He's that important of a figure, both in the industry, but also in like the art industry as well. So it's just like a great book to have in your house, I think.
Yeah, this is a great one for like anyone who collects stuff, because it's like a beautiful box. It's got like many beautiful elements inside. And it is also, gift this to someone you really love, because it is quite expensive. And I will say, like, you may be thinking like, oh, you guys are just pushing a product. I bought this myself because I wanted it. It's great.
Yeah, no, I think I'm probably going to definitely buy one myself. Because one of the things that I love about this book is that because I remember seeing his art either in the games or in these instructional books, it's when you look at them in this book, they actually pop a little bit more because the colors are a little bit more vibrant. They're on that kind of glossy paper. And yeah, they really it's kind of a way of experiencing the art that you might not have experienced before. So I definitely recommend it.
And it's very heavy. You can kill a small child with it.
Yeah, it comes with a free cart to wheel it around. No, this next book I'm very excited about. It's a little bit different because it's a graphic novel. It's Cyberpunk 2077, Big City Dreams. And if you can't get enough of the Cyberpunk 2077 universe,
you can't even get enough of it to say.
It's a mouthful. It's a really, really cool graphic novel. It actually won the 2023 Hugo Award for Best Graphic Novel / Comic Book. So it's pretty good. And yeah, it has really, really good art. What I like about this book, though, is it has a really interesting story. It's about these two, what they call scavengers or scavs in the cyberpunk universe. I don't know how familiar you are, Charlotte, but they're kind of these downtrodden thieves. They go around, they steal cyberware. And, one of them has dreams of being this huge gangster criminal legend. And then the other one has a little bit more of a modest more modest ambition. And what's cool about their diverging sort of pursuits of happiness is they're manifested in their taste in brain dances. And what are brain dances, you ask, Charlotte? They're these sort of virtual, and if you play the game, you know what I'm talking about, but they're kind of like these headsets you put on so you can virtually experience somebody else's memories in a first person kind of fashion. So like think if you just like recorded yourself, I don't know, doing like going at the beach or something like that, somebody can like put on the helmet and experience the same thing. Actually reminds me a lot about this movie called Strange Days with Ralph Fiennes and Angela Bassett, which is like a really weird 90s capsule movie. They have like a similar concept. But anyway, it's very cool. It uses that whole concept in very interesting ways. And I like this book because it has that short story O. Henry ironic kind of quality to it. It sort of leads you in unexpected directions, and there's a lot of, I think, irony in the story as well.
So as you've touched on, I actually have not played Cyberpunk yet, and it's not like a, I guess, world IP that I'm super familiar with. How well does this book do at kind of like capturing the feeling of the game? Like, do you feel like they're connected or kind of two separate stories?
No, I definitely think it does a great job of being in that world, because I think since like the Cyberpunk 2077 universe was originally created by Mike Pondsmith, who worked on the tabletop game, and so there's a lot of lore and sort of groundwork with the language people use, all the different cities and gangs that are kind of aware that are there, and that's been the CD Projekt Red has really done a good job of taking up that mantle and putting it in a lot of different ways throughout the game, because it's not just the game that incorporates that. There's also like a Netflix animation or anime that's out that does a really good job.
And I know that they've done multiple graphic novels at this point. Yeah. Is this like a self-contained story, or is there more?
This is a self-contained story. Yeah, you don't need to necessarily read anything prior to have a good understanding of what's going on. And I want to say you don't even really need to play the game, but it certainly helps, because I think the video game that is, it does a great job of illustrating all the different concepts. Like the brain dances in the game is really, really cool because you're controlling things, and it's sort of like an investigative tool in the game, which I really like. And of course the game is first person, so that concept works really well. And yeah, Night City. It's a great place to be if you want to get shot or die young.
Love it.
Also, just if you're a fan of the cyberpunk genre in general, authors like Philip K. Dick or William Gibson or Pat Cadigan, I think this is a great entry point into the graphic novel iteration of these types of stories.
Or you can go the opposite way. If you want to get into those authors, read this and then work your way up.
Yep, that works too. And as much as I love it, it is definitely not for the young children. Very much adult themed. If you've ever played any of the games, you know what I'm talking about. So just a little warning there.
Keeping with the CD Projekt Red theme, what we have next is the Witcher official cookbook.
Oh, yeah.
Which maybe you haven't sat down and played any of the Witcher games and gone, wow, that looks delicious. I'd like to make that. But if you have, boy, do we have the book for you.
Yeah. So as you would expect, this contains a lot of dishes that were inspired by the lore of the Witcher books and video games. And it's really cool because it's actually organized by all the different regions in the world. So, if you're familiar with the game, there's like a whole section for the Valen region, for White Orchard, and for Toussaint, which is one of my favorites. That's like the more traditional fantasy kind of King Arthur style world. And the photography in this book is really, really amazing. And I think they do a really good job of echoing the art style of not only the game, but all just the concept art that's also in the book. So you really get that nice complementary page layout where you have like these really sumptuous dishes against some really like cool looking, colorful and rich landscapes and character designs and things like that.
There's a very specific set of people who would enjoy this book, but I feel like the people who would enjoy this book would really enjoy it. Like anyone you know who is both a gamer and also likes to cook. This is like a perfect marriage of those concepts. Anyone who fits into those would really love this book and just kind of love, even if they don't immediately want to sit down and make a recipe in it, it's just like a fun world building thing to kind of like flip through and see all the dishes.
Yeah, and it's not just a traditional cookbook. Like obviously there's all the instructional stuff that you would expect from a cookbook, but there's also a lot of interesting commentary and lore on how the dishes are inspired by the information and the style of the game. And there's also just a lot of background information in the game world. It's about the game world itself.
If you're the type of person who also likes to have very like themed parties, say if you want to sit down with friends and play Witcher games, if you want to watch the Witcher show, it is great to kind of have the most authentic food you possibly can for those parties.
Yeah, that was a great idea.
Are there any recipes that really stood out to you, Jonathan?
Charlotte, I'm a big soup person. And this does have some good soup. There's a couple of good ones that I was intrigued by. There's a crimson beetroot soup. It's a little hard to say, but that's a really good one. And then of course, the local favorite, Redanian fish soup.
Please make either of those and bring them to our team holiday party.
Don't be fooled by the simple title. It is quite savory and delectable.
I think one of the things that I know I always struggle with the most in holiday gift giving is, kind of like the kids in my life. What would they like? What would make them the most happiest? How can I be the coolest aunt? So next up, we kind of have a lightning round of books that are kind of for the younger audience that we think are really cool and would probably delight any kid who might be into video games at all. All right, so the books that we have picked out here are the Minecraft Guide Collection, which is 4 books in a fancy box.
I have here the Super Mario Brothers Encyclopedia, very appropriate.
And then we, of course, have to place next to the Mario Encyclopedia, the Sonic the Hedgehog Encyclopedia.
This is a good arrangement. The two mascots head to head. Are you a Sonic person or a Mario person? That's the big question.
That's a complicated question because I feel like I have played more Mario games, or like not even played them, but like been with my family playing them. But I know weirdly a lot about Sonic for someone who has not played that much Sonic.
Yeah, I think Sonic, more so than Mario, went through several midlife crises where he's like reinventing himself dramatically and dipping his toes into genres where maybe he shouldn't.
Yeah, I mean, Sonic is a franchise that has happened to all of us, but it is kind of like a franchise that was successful, and then as games progressed, it tried many things, and many of those things were not successful. But you know what the Encyclopedia tells us? It tells us about all of those games in all of their glory. Yeah.
When I was younger, I was definitely more of a Sonic kid. I think I definitely fell for that intentional marketing where they were like, Sonic's the one with attitude. If you don't touch the controller after a minute, Sonic's going to turn to the camera and be like, move it along or something like that. Like all those little subtle animations in the old Genesis Sonic games, I thought added so much character to everything. It really it felt so much more of a differentiator between him and Mario, or like when you would have him too close to a ledge and he would like try and balance himself. And just like, like the wheel blur of his feet when he was running fast. I really loved all that stuff.
Yeah. I mean, Sonic's success is so much founded on the fact that Sonic is an amazing character design and it appeals so much to kids. Like, we all know that you can search any name the Hedgehog and you will find someone's OC design of their own Sonic the Hedgehog character. But I feel like all of these books are really great for, kind of the kid who wants to sit down and experience the worlds that they love even when they need a break from the screen. Like, I very much remember as a kid getting Encyclopedia books like these, like for Pokemon and whatnot, and just like loving to sit down and read those, like when I was on a car ride where I didn't have access to games. And there's just so much information in all of these, and all of the imagery is so amazing. Any kid who is at all interested in any of these IPs would definitely love any of these books.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think these are two of the best ones out there just because they are mascots that have been around for so long. So they have all the different iterations that they've been through over the course of the last 30 years. And both of these books do a great job of documenting that with all the different imagery and also just like all the little like nice little snippets of information with all the games that they've been involved with. And yeah, I totally agree. Like, these are perfect books to have around the holiday season because, yeah, as you've mentioned, it can be a little challenging to get the little ones away from the screen. And yeah, this is a great way to kind of keep them busy for 4 hours. Or I actually think they make really good coffee table books too. And they're a great thing to just have lying around the house when you want an excuse to not talk to your family during the holidays. It's a nice thing to kind of dip your head into and get lost in.
And they're also a great gift for, I know that I have like a nephew who's not quite at the age yet where his parents think that he's quite ready, to have his own gaming console and kind of like be able to mitigate that time. But I know he's like very interested in stuff like Minecraft because it's such a pop culture everywhere sort of thing. So these are even great books for, kind of the kid who isn't quite ready to be playing the games yet, but still wants to feel included in kind of the worlds that they're creating. And the Minecraft guide collection is really cool to me, someone who knows very, very little about Minecraft, because it kind of takes you through the different things you can do in Minecraft and kind of lays out like strategies and sort of ideas for all the stuff you can do in Minecraft. And even like I'd recommend parents check it out if they're kind of like, oh, what is Minecraft? Why is my kid obsessed with it? Like, it's a really great kind of intro to not just like Minecraft as a game, but Minecraft, like what it can do and how it's kind of something that can help teach your kids things rather than just kind of be a video game that you're like, I don't really want my kids playing video games.
Next book we have is The Art of Horizon Forbidden West by Guerrilla Games. And obviously, if you're a fan of the Horizon games, this is a really cool book to check out. And one of the things I really like about the Horizon games is their, I guess, interpretation or vision of the future and how they see, society decaying in a particular way.
Yeah, because it's like post-apocalyptic.
Yeah, exactly.
So this book is really cool for anyone who's a big fan of seeing the environmental art, especially the environmental concept art behind a game, because understandably, Horizon Forbidden West is a sequel, and it has a lot of returning characters from the first game. So this book doesn't focus quite as much on like character design as maybe like the first entry into the series would, but there's a ton of like really amazing paintings of just like the environments, and I feel like that's always something that Horizon has really had going for it. It has like a really beautifully realized and kind of constructed naturalistic world.
One thing I really loved about Horizon Forbidden West was the diversity of the biomes. There's mountains, there's deserts, there's a flooded version of Las Vegas, there are the overgrown and ruinous remains of the Golden Gate Bridge. Such a cool visual theme to see, these decaying structures, and then you get like all the foliage like growing over the wreckage. That's such a cool, I think, visual aesthetic. It really lends itself to having like colorful, vibrant art. That sort of contrast between like the old and the decay and the new and lush foliage.
And it's kind of environments that have a lot of like thought put into how they've come about. Like sometimes you will have games where it's like, it's a forest, so there are trees.
Yeah.
But Horizon, I feel like, is kind of telling its story through its environments as much as its characters, because you're seeing like the past that has become this post-apocalyptic future.
Yeah, totally. And I really love the designs of the the mechanical dinosaurs or creatures that are roaming the game. And you do get a lot of that art as well in terms of like how they came up with those concepts and a lot of art associated with that. Charlotte, before we go, is there anything that you are reading or playing that you'd like to call out for our audience?
So I just bought In Stars and Time, and I'm really excited to dive into that one because I feel like everyone is talking about what a great like game it is and like what a great narrative experience it is, and I'm just really excited to be able to, I guess, kind of dive into that once the holiday break comes.
Is that the game where it sort of has an Undertale type of aesthetic to it?
Yeah, the like time loop.
Yes. I want to check that out as well. Now, is that only available on Switch or can you get it otherwise?
It's on a bunch of platforms.
Okay, can I get it on the PlayStation?
Yes.
Nice. Yeah, I'm definitely going to check that out too because I was very intrigued by that.
Yeah,
Great.
Is there anything that you're reading or playing currently?
You know, I am playing Starfield. I'm in the middle of a Starfield
on your TV.
playthrough. Yes, it was actually kind of a revelation because I've full disclosure, I only own a PlayStation 5, so I usually have a pretty big blind spot for Xbox games, but I actually found out because Conan O'Brien did one of his Clueless Gamer things with Starfield, and they were advertising that, you can play this on your Samsung TV or your smart TV. And I was like, wait, you can? And lo and behold, I downloaded the Samsung Gaming Hub app, and yeah, you can hook up Xbox Game Pass, and yeah, you can play every game on Xbox Game Pass on your TV without an Xbox, which is amazing. So
technology.
I know, yeah, cloud gaming, way to go, Microsoft. But yeah, so I've been playing Starfield for a while actually, and I know it's one of those games that it's become kind of fashionable to dunk on and criticize in various fashions, but I gotta say I am really, really enjoying it. And I think maybe all the hate that the game's been getting kind of helped me lower my expectations, so maybe that's why I'm enjoying it a lot more because I had lower expectations. But no, I think it's a very interesting game because I think a lot of the criticisms that you've seen are accurate and I agree with, but it's one of those games where I don't know, it's that Bethesda special sauce. It just kind of cuts through all the noise. And I think that despite the fact that I know people think that their design or just the look of their games can feel a little dated, I still feel like there are a few companies that really get the fun of role-playing better than they do. Just that feeling that, I can do anything. I can kind of make my own path in this world. And I still really like that. And I think that shines through in this game. So I definitely expect to continue playing it for a while. And yeah.
And for anyone keeping score, yes, I am still playing Baldur's Gate. Someday I will finish.
Nice.
All right. So those are all the books on our gift giving guide for this year. And if you want to check out any of those books, you can find them at the link here. And of course, let us know in the comments what you are going to be gifting your fellow gamers this season. And if you have any favorite gaming gift memories from your childhood or even your adulthood, whatever, we want to hear it.
Or if you want any more specific recommendations for people in your life to get gifts for, shoot us an email at letsplay@prh.com or leave a comment below. And hopefully we'll get back to you before Christmas or whatever holiday gift-giving holiday you celebrate.
Honestly, try to stump us. We'd love to play your twisted little games.
Yes.
All right. We hope you all have a great holiday season. Or if you're watching this post-holidays, we hope you had a great holiday season. So enjoy wherever and whenever you are.
Yeah. Happy holidays, everyone.